city council to order. Attendance, all board members are present. After the flag salute, we'll have introductions, and so then city council will all be introduced and everything. So flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be clear for our audience, the school district, this the session will take place 6 to 7. School district will have its regular board meeting immediately following. My understanding is city council, you'll go to your facilities for a 7:30 start, if I'm right, for your meeting. So everybody knows where everybody will be. And for introductions, I think the simplest thing would be if we just start on one side and just if you'd say who you're representing and your position, your name and your position. And why don't we start with Brandon over here and work our way around, catch all the school district staff, city staff, and council and board members.
Brandon Larson, Director of Special Services.
Tim Dow, Director of Finance.
Anthony Rosales, Assistant Superintendent.
Kim Hellison, Interim Superintendent.
Jen Dow, Superintendent Board Secretary.
Owen Von Flew, member of the school board.
Jennifer Traeger, same.
Bill Wiesner, board member.
Derek Foxworth, board member. Josh Ort, board member, Zone 6.
Aaron Cook, board member.
Tom Buchholz, board member.
Kyle Palmer, city council.
April Newton, City Councilor.
Jason Freilinger, Mayor of Silverton. Also, Eric Hammond will be joining us here soon, Councilor Hammond, and then Councilor Sutton might be joining us via Zooms. We'll see what happens.
Marie Traeger, City Council.
Matt Guyton, City Councilor.
Corey Misley, city manager.
Macy Mulholland, Deputy City Recorder and Communications Coordinator.
Okay. And I'd like to welcome you all here on behalf of the school district for this session. And get right to business since we have fairly full agenda for an hour. Our first item up is concerning school resource officer and Todd Gangstrom, Chief of Police, and Corey Misley, City Manager. Have that.
Sorry about the socks. Is that in your way?
I have my.
Board member, sorry.
Check it out, I'm already silent.
Everybody, it's fun.
Good evening, my name is Todd Engstrom, Chief of Police here in Silverton, and I have my entourage with me, Sergeant JJ Lemro and Officer Sean Aljets. Good evening to the board, also to our city council. So we want to take a little bit of time, and I want to be mindful too of our time, because I know we have 4 different items to cover in 1 hour, so. Quite a bit of information was sent to you. Hopefully you guys got a copy of the packet, had a PowerPoint in it. I'll hit the highlights of the PowerPoint. And then give an overview of the history of the SRO program and kind of talk about what we're doing and then offer it up to questions for both the city council and for the board. So as the slide is there, and I think most of you can see it, beginning in the 97-98 school year, the SRO was Terry Murphy. SRO, if you don't know what it stands for, it's School Resource Officer. Sorry, in the cop world we tend to use a lot of acronyms, but Terry Murphy was the first school resource officer, and that was completely funded by the city at that point. Then we had the recession, and then probably in 2010 we really started to feel the tightness of the recession in the budget, and so that position was cut. And then come 2015, for the 2015-16 school year, the school district reached out and wanted to partially fund the school resource officer position and bring it back. And I'll talk about funding here in a little bit, but JJ was the first of the school resource officers when it was brought back. And he did that position for 4 years. In Silverton, the officers, we have 12 officers. If we're fully staffed, we have 12. Right now, we have 11. But of those 12, we have 3 specialty positions, one of which is the school resource officer, another would be a traffic officer, and the third would be a detective. And each of those positions are a 4-year rotation. And that's to give other people opportunities to do other things. So someone just doesn't just park themselves in that position for their entire career. Because we're small, there's not a lot of opportunity to do other things. And so we have a 4-year rotation policy. So at the same time, JJ was hitting his 4-year rotation, he got promoted in 2020. And then Sean took over in 2020. She did 4 years, and then she put in to do it for another 4 years and was selected to do it again. So she's in year 1 of her second 4 years. Follow me on that map. So the scope of the work. There's some stats. Well, okay, we'll just go. I'll kind of follow the slides here. So when the district wanted the school resource officer position back, which JJ started, they asked that the school resource officer not just focus on the high school and the middle school. That's what Terry Murphy did when he was school resource officer. Basically those 2 schools. But the district said, we would like you to spread your time throughout the 14 schools in the district. So maybe I'll let JJ speak to that in a little bit, but that was the mandate, and he was able to do that. But that's a lot of work for one school resource officer. And there's just a list of the schools that you guys all know very well. Next slide, please. I'm not going to hit all of that, but that's just a little bit of the job description. Number 1 is responding to calls, whether those are theft calls, fight calls, minor in possession calls. That's what the school resource officer is doing. So they're doing that. Also assisting during school events. So you'll see them at parades, at homecoming events, football games, dances. You have your school resource officer there. Also they conduct active threat training, not only starting with the young kindergartners and teaching them what that means, and they have a book that they read with the kindergartners and the first graders. But then as they get older, we're doing lockdown and lockout drills at the schools on a regular basis. I've helped with some of those. And then always preparing, hopefully, for the event that never comes, an active threat event. And what we've been doing since I came to Silverton 3 years ago, I came initially as a sergeant, then was the captain, and now I'm the chief. But since in the past 3.5 years, we've done active training, active threat training in the schools once a year at least. And we've tried to use a different school each time. And oftentimes, sometimes it's the first time that the officers have ever been to that school. So it's not only an opportunity for us to train in one of our schools, but for them to see the floor plan and really get to know that floor plan. Also visibility, engagement, some of the big things that they do. But I think one of the biggest things that we get with our school resource officers is role modeling. It's having a positive role model in the schools. The specialty unit, the school resource officer position is not for everyone. I wouldn't put all of my police officers in this position. It takes a special personality. Take someone that likes kids. Okay, I have a couple of my cops that don't like kids. They probably will never have kids. So those aren't ones I'm going to choose to be school resource officers. JJ has 2, Sean has 3. So, they love kids and they understand the importance of having a good role model in the kids' lives. So role modeling is something they do. Also a lot of education programs inside the school, driver's ed programs. We talked about the lockout education, building positive relationships. And then there's a lot of training that goes involved, sex abuse and child abuse and sex abuse investigation, crisis intervention, mental health response. Our school resource officer is always part of the Oregon School Resource Officers Association, and they go to the annual training, which is held in the summertime. And they are part of the behavioral safety assessment system training and team. So there's a lot going on there. Funding. We'll talk funding and then we can get into some questions. So the school district pays 75% of the position. So what the city does is they send a bill each month, so they break out the school resource officer's wages and benefits into 12 payments. And each month, that payment is, or a bill is sent to the school district and then they pay. And we do that for the 9 months of the school year. For the 3 months of summer, we don't send a bill and the school resource officer comes back to us and we just incorporate them into patrol. And oftentimes that's the time when officers are taking vacation. So it's nice to have an additional body in rotation for patrol so it can send people on their vacations. So just a quick close and then we'll open it up to questions. Well, we can talk about the stats real quick. Can you go back to the previous slide? I guess go forward, please. We're missing a slide. Can you go forward one more? I think it got lost in the shuffle. There were a couple slides. One was JJ's stats and the other was Sean's stats. And there's a distinct difference between the stats, and you may see this. I think that slide just got omitted for some reason. JJ,
Todd, I took page numbers because I didn't want to load the city's.
okay.
So I probably missed it.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
That's fine. If you were to look at the slides, if they came out in your packet, you might see that JJ's doing in the neighborhood of 450 to 500 calls per year. And then we had COVID, things changed. What we responded to as police officers kind of changed both on our behalf and on the district's behalf. And just the whole system was kind of revamped. So Sean's numbers are not as big as JJ's numbers, even though that they're in the schools nonstop year round and still doing great work. Yes, and MIP tobacco kind of went away too, so that was a big one. Can you go forward, please? All right, so just in conclusion, so we can take some questions. I don't know if everybody knows in this room, I was a Portland police officer for 27 years and then I came to Silverton. And I absolutely love the fact that we have a school resource officer in our school, in our school district. And Portland, over the years, devalued that. They started, they took the officers out of the schools altogether. I think since I've been here for the last 3.5 years, I'll run into kids that were probably in elementary school or even in high school. A few years ago when JJ was the school resource officer, and they always ask about JJ, very beloved. And I get the same reaction to kids about Sean and what she does in the school. So I think it's really, really important, really valuable that we have a school resource officer in the district. And honestly, I wish we had more because there's a lot of kids. I think the snapshot on the one slide was at the beginning of school in the neighborhood of 3,700 kids at 13 different schools. So that's a lot for one person to deal with. Any questions?
I got a quick question for you. If you can elaborate on the stats, just what that exactly represents, the number of calls. Are those calls that are originated from the school, in the school? Or could those be kids at home during school hours? Like what's counted there?
Defer to JJ.
Majority, it's a mix. So SRO is a specialty position whenever I mean, my first couple of years, I was taking phone calls 11, 12 o'clock at night with concerns for students with like suicide behavior. I've been called while I've gone on vacation in Vegas, for a question. So a lot of the stats and stuff that's coming in are either going to be created at the school, either by a kid having a question, a ticket, an investigation into like minor in possession, but they can originate outside the school. So if a possible crime is connected, the school comes up and there's needed additional assistance. Sometimes people come in and say, hey, I'm a student, I had this happen to me, I'll only talk to the SRO because we've established that long and stuff. So it really kind of establishes year round because we can take SRO CADs year round and we have a lot of times are still doing SRO stuff, even though we're not in that 9-month window. So it can be anything from a student wanting to talk about someone's driving behavior to wanting to report a crime that's happened to them. It's just something bad. So
JJ referred to a CAD as a computer aided dispatch. Again, acronyms, COTS and their acronyms. Computer aided dispatch. So every time we create a call, That's a call type, it's a call number. So like in this case, it would be an SRO call type. And we count from January 1 at midnight till the end of, December. We just count calls. Like last year, we had nearly 9,500 calls in the city service. So that percentage would be SRO calls. Do you have anything to add, Sean?
The only thing is that, because of the SRO having access to children, there's a lot of times when, say, for instance, the DHS cross report comes through. I will pair with DHS and then we'll make contact with the children at school. So that would be another example of something that's stemming from outside of the school.
Because it's more comfortable and easier to talk to them at the school.
Because Canton already know me.
You said 75-25 breakdown of, but what is the number we're breaking that?
So the
down?
number I had, and this was a quick call to our finance, on average, we're billing $11,500 per month to the school district.
Thank you.
It fluctuates, it's not a set amount, and I don't know the math on why it's different, but they just kind of averaged the number for me. So that's where I came up with the 11,500
And we do that, you said, for 9 months?
for 9 months, for the 9 months of the school year, September through May. So June, July, August, we pay, we don't send a bill, basically.
And then I guess I have another question. So obviously this is important. I'm just kind of curious where the recommendation came from. Was there an incident or just feeling we can't cover the work? I'm just, for the second SRO, how did that start? Yeah.
It's, the investigations have just been kind of more complicated with technology. And there is enough work so when I was there, I was able to figure out and find a way to get all the schools plus do my duty. And kind of pull down the high school and stuff. It's gotten to the point that most of the calls are now coming from the high school and junior high. And we're not getting out to the outlying schools like we want to get that presence or education level that we think that it deserves. So, just having been in the position and knowing that it works, if we had a second and could divide, the outlying schools and have one specifically at the junior high and one at the high school, I think the district would benefit from it.
It would give us a lot more opportunity to be the proactive that we really want to be.
And we've always kind of been open to the talks, but we also understand that you guys operate on the budget and there's, the last couple of years have been challenging, so. It's something that. Correct me if I'm not able to speak for the city, it's something we've always been interested in trying to do, or seeing what we can do to make that happen. Having done it for 4 years and 4 years at a previous school district, I've seen the benefits immensely. And just think that it would just continue to show that Silverton stands out in that area, policing and using that resource in the schools.
Any questions from City Council?
What about discussion items? I don't see any questions from us, but discussion items between us? Is that okay?
What's that now?
Could I ask a question? Not for them, but for you guys?
Yes, please.
So, by the way, did Counselor Sutton join us? I don't think that she did. Okay, so I had to measure the depth of my comments based on whether or not she's here or not, because I don't want to infringe on her favorite topic. So, so there are members of council, myself being one, that are interested in adding the second SRO. As we're getting into the budget season, the big question that the council is going to have to look at is, does the school district even feel a need or appreciation for doing that? Before we get into the brass tacks of talking about how much money we want to put into it, are you even interested? And I would go so far as to say, not making any commitments, but maybe that percentage needs to be adjusted a little bit so there's less burden on the school district. And I guess I would like to know where the school district might stand in that consideration.
Well, I'm not going to speak for the board, but we haven't had discussion about that. I feel like we would need to definitely have some discussion along those lines. Because personally, I see it a huge value, but it also strikes me that there's a value to the whole community. And it's a big topic. And then looking at, our resources for next year, obviously that's another aspect as well. So I don't know how my other fellow board members feel.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I can see the pluses of it and the need for it. Our problem right now is that same money we need for more teachers, more aides, more counselors, more everything. And so as far as prioritizing, as we put back or are able to put back, where that would fit in, and that's where we definitely need to have a discussion, not only amongst ourselves, but with our administrators, as far as where they feel that money, we can get the most bang for the buck when we have limited resources.
In my opinion,
Chime in first. I would say that we are deep into the prioritization process right now, and we just sent a survey to administrators up to our first staff to see what their priorities are for their buildings next year. And then on the 27th, we're having a work session to talk about the integrated plan with ODE, which is a grant program that gives the district $4 to $5 million per year. And in that process, ODE requires stakeholder feedback. And so that meeting will be a really open forum where we will listen to our stakeholders and staff members and students, and anyone that wants to attend can come. It's at 7 p.m. like our regular board meeting, but it's a work session, integrated planning session. And that is a good place for staff members and other people to come talk about what they would like to see in the school system. And so what we want to get from that is a holistic view of what needs to be, what's most important in our district and what we have the capacity to add back. So when we're looking at improvements or staffing changes or anything like that in the district, we have to be mindful of an important budget thing. So our budget items, our PERS hit is $2.5 to $3 million this year, which is a significant impact. And we have deferred maintenance and capital improvement projects that are between $500,000 to $1 million minimum. And so we have to start prioritizing some of those things. So, we have to talk about all those things in great detail. And I will add, though, that Officer Aljets is a really great part of our community. And I really do see a lot of value behind her service to our kids and our community. And I will say, as a superintendent of a smaller district that had 2 SROs, that is a really valuable thing to have in a district, especially a larger one this size. So I think this is an ongoing discussion in the district, but I'm sure happy to hear that you guys are interested in that, and we'll have to do some more exploration, I think.
I definitely would see it as something that a need to have would love to have, right? I think the problem is we have such a large list of that right now, given our current budget constraints. And to buckle on what Kim said about we're going into budgeting season, still not even knowing what the state legislature is going to assign and the governor is going to assign for our true budget, right? And those of you who've had experience with our school budgets before too, it's like this year is the second year of the biennium, and we're budging into the unknown for the new biennium, right? And it's going to be a big unknown. I would love to keep this conversation going and have more at our board, more discussions, allowing our teachers, our administrators, our public to weigh in on this, because I think everybody would see this as be a great asset to have a second SRO to do the proactive work too, to help with behavioral issues and just great influence in our schools. I think, again, the problem is we have so many need to haves right now that we're just kind of in critical mass mode right now. And to get back to a more normative state, hopefully into next school year. And then we can, in my opinion, kind of really start looking at, okay, what do we need back? Because we need to add teachers back. We need to add assistants back. We need, English language specialists back. We have so many needs right now that I think it'd be really difficult to add this into the priority list because there's just so many.
I think additional information that would be useful for the conversation. I know you have the breakdown of the stats there, but like a further breakdown of like what those calls actually are. And if there's any like national level, like recommendations for a district our size, and then geographically as well, I think that'll help inform the conversation. Because I think tangibly we all see the significant benefit in having more school resource officers dedicated, but as my board members mentioned, just tangible, we have so many needs, like how do you prioritize that? So I think the hard data will be helpful as we move forward with the conversation.
I'm glad.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say that I'm glad Kim mentioned the public input process too, because I think that would be an important piece in order to help prioritize. I know I'm working off of the last public input that we got. And this wasn't part of the conversation, so it's really hard to see where our families or our community members prioritize. I do want to say though, thank you for your work, and you clearly picked the right person for the job. We do really appreciate what we have so far, and I appreciate the city's bringing up the idea of maybe changing the funding level a bit. I really appreciate that as well. Although I do think it's a hard ask for right now for the upcoming year. That might be really hard to visualize that.
And I was just gonna implement on that, is I didn't realize that was a part of the conclusion notes and stuff was talking about the second one, but like we've kind of talked to the previous administration in the past, as long as it's something that's always kind of there. Also, we talked about, city, or I don't want to speak for the city, but I know the police department will be in support of it. As a parent with kids in the district going to school and stuff, totally understand that there's higher priorities and we need to look at that. But just once we do get as fruitful as we have been, and we get through what we're dealing with and stuff like that. As long as it's on the back burner that we're constantly going to train and provide this position. It just will be easier for us to help serve that can be possibly considered at some point.
I'll just add my 2 cents. So one, Todd, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think when we talk about the safety of our staff and our students, it's, can you put a price on that? And that's the hard part about this discussion. But I know we're down nurses, counselors, and so it'll be really interesting what our administrative team comes up with, like where we really feel like the needs are, because we got teachers in every class that are crying out for help too with their class sizes. And so this going forward, what I'd like to see is your continued input. If you see something we can improve procedural wise, security wise, training, because we could also talk about taking money that would go to security, go to the assets there as well. They'll last for a lot longer than an employee. But those are my thoughts. You're doing a great job. This is a really hard discussion to have, but it's a good one to have.
We might also pursue some grant funding. So I'm gonna write the Cox grant this spring. And it provides a lot of security features for the district if we can get it. I've been successful in the past, so I've written one that was accepted. So I'm hopeful that we can put one together that might address some of these additional things.
Couple real quick considerations. One is just looking at the IGA and the MOU and the operational plan that are all sort of sandwiched together to encompass this program, and just making sure that we have all that up to date and accurate just in terms of kind of house cleaning. But that is that opportunity to also open up this broader conversation and look more at the philosophy and look more at best practices as it relates to Silverton, the community. And on that note, we're largely talking about with the second SRO serving schools exclusively outside the city limits, which, we're all part of the same community, but at the same time, maybe there's an opportunity to broaden the conversation, this partnership, and expand and maybe include the county and the sheriff's office potentially. You never get what you don't ask for. So we are thinking about that, and we want to lean into at least starting and having that conversation and seeing if there's something to come of that. And just continuing to put that on the table as we talk more about this.
Yeah, I did notice our contract is out of date, so we probably should.
Yeah. Start there.
Work on that. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And just a real kind of procedural note as well, knowing that Kim and I spoke earlier today, and we had included a couple other items on the agenda, and you all had added an item, and so we trued all that up. And so where I'm going with that is I think really the first three are the bulk of what will take discussion time. I know specifically with the IGA and MOU piece, that was more of just kind of background material to make sure we were all aware of what was out there, not to necessarily dive into it. So I just want to say that before we kept going and the time flew by.
Okay. Okay, well, Mark Twain property, and looks like Corey, you're up on that.
Yeah, I can tee this one up for us. So back in the spring, the council had some conversations about potential ways to assist the school district when you all were assessing the dust settling a bit initially on some of the challenges with the financial situation. And one of the considerations was looking at unused land or underutilized land within the city limits. The city has a deficiency in our park system, in our level of service. And so amongst other priorities, we're looking for opportunities to add a green space, open space, and obviously park and recreation facilities per our master plan. So we really talked at a high level about a few pieces of property, the piece west and behind Robert Frost Elementary School, the James Street property, and also this kind of northeast, I won't say quadrant, but, you know, portion of the Mark Twain Elementary School. And obviously some things have transpired, some additional conversations has happened with some of those other pieces of property. But with this one, we just wanted to put it out there as a high level conversation point about the potential for a potential land transfer transaction for the benefit of the community in a variety of ways. So I know we won't get into the details of that tonight, but just wanted to kind of put it out there collectively to see if there might be an appetite for that and what sort of a process and timeline might even look like if so, to explore that.
Corey, would you like me to have Daniel put that map up?
That'd be, yeah, that'd be helpful.
Can you go into, thank you. So good. Daniel's so good at that.
And I don't know, I'm not sure if we all know necessarily the full history of.
Yeah, that's a high school. It's under, hey, Daniel, I sent you the city's packet. Go into the city's packet. And it's under Mark Twain. Sorry, Corey.
Oh, no problem.
That's the safe routes portion, which we. Sorry about that. I think I sent you a link in your email. I sent it there.
Corey, does the city have does the city have a conceptual plan at all, or is this just really preliminary? We'd like to add it as kind of green space and we'll figure out from there.
This is as preliminary as it gets.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know,
Okay.
beyond just moving from conversations of throwing things at the wall and brainstorming to, you know, a little more formal dialogue in this regard. And that's a long way of saying no. I don't believe we have really much of any park space in that area of town.
You have Southtown or Milltown, you have that little park. but it's- It's a
Lincoln
tiny park.
kind of over the other side, yeah.
But nothing directly behind all those houses there, but in apartments.
Nothing.
And this may not be, you know, the forum to kind of understand a little bit more of the analysis that you all might need to do with looking out for facilities needs and whatnot. Oh, thanks, Daniel. So it's crude. I did it myself. The X is the portion approximately in question, and the red portion highlighted is land that the city already owns that, from my understanding, was former maybe railroad right away, I believe. So again, potential around open space, green space, park space, possibly connectivity with either roads, but certainly looking at pedestrian connectivity and just trying to help better connect people to move to and through town. And I'll just pause if any other council members or mayor want to, you know, speak to that. We haven't discussed it at length by any means.
I will just add, and I don't know if this is feasible, and I feel like I'm speaking for Councilor Hammond, who's the one that first brought it up. And he can jump in anytime, but I think some of the idea was also the oak grove, that what remains of the oak grove that's out there. To my knowledge, the only time that ever gets used is when people are watching soccer games, which I don't have a problem with the city hosting parents watching soccer games being on city property. So it's under the oak trees outside of the soccer field. So that was another part, but I feel like I'm speaking for Councilor Hammond, so I'll let him. Was that kind of your thought too, or not?
Yeah, that's definitely my thought would be try- the only word that's coming to mind is capture. That's not quite the right tenor that I want to, but to memorialize the oak grove there around the soccer field as a park, it effectively functions as green space for the city, but it lacks any protection of green space, as is evidenced what happened after the ice storm. And someday the school district will build a new school somewhere, right? And this would, moving it into parkland would help keep it as green space for the city. Part of the city that doesn't have green space, as we just pointed out, Milltown is the only park on the that sort of north west, I mean east part of the city, and so increasing or the amenities there would be useful for the community as a whole, and just ecologically the oaks are important for the Willamette Valley, and this site, well, I don't need to go into all the details of it, but it's old. It's really old. The largest oak in Silverton is actually the closest oak to the school, outside of the Oregon Garden. So it's an important site.
So I'm to gather, we want the oak grove to protect the oak grove. And what would just whatever usage the other space would be? Because to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen Mark Twain ever use that property, ever. I've never been back there, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's fenced off now, actually. Isn't it fenced?
The portion that's Xed off here, are there actually oaks on that?
Yeah, I was
part,
gonna
or
say.
is this where we planted the nursery stuff?
No, there's no.
Yeah, you're talking about more of the area that's not in that. All that stuff.
That's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna say the X area has the little trees in it, doesn't it? Yeah.
No, the replanted trees are only
Yeah.
in the area where trees were removed.
Yeah.
Kind of that
There's
triangular.
200 trees were planted, and like 60 something or 70 trees were cut. 200 were planted. Obviously we can't grow 200 for long term, but the deer will kill a lot.
Okay. Per the aerial, it looks like there's maybe one large tree in this area that we're talking. The three
Of the
Oh.
X?
Yeah.
I would say the X is probably in the wrong spot.
Yeah,
From
Oh,
misunderstanding.
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
don't get hung up on the X. That's my
So,
doing.
so when the council was talking about it, I didn't even know the school district owned that piece of property. So when the council was talking about it, that's not what we were talking about. So that's a miscommunication on our part.
Oh,
So it's really the area to the north of the field, on either side of the field, both where the remaining older oaks are, as
okay.
well as where the replacement were planted.
Oh, okay.
So it's an odd shape, but we have an interest in that.
And I would recommend, per more analysis, that it's probably and not or.
Right.
It's actually the X and
It could be
some of
yes.
the other area.
Well, we need an actual park space too, so.
Right, and the
Green space, yeah.
connectivity pieces potentially,
Yeah.
et cetera.
So you
Yeah.
would run a road through there.
I wouldn't go on the record saying that, but I would go on the record saying that we would look at, if the city owned land in that area, what would our transportation system plan, what would, best connectivity practices say, would make sense. But yeah, that's far from being on the table.
I like the idea that we're opening up the discussion. This piece of property was discussed at a school board level like 2018, 2017, I think. At that time, I was hesitant because we didn't have a long-term facilities plan, and that could have been part of it, right? But it hasn't been part of that. So I think that this is an opportunity worth exploring, and I really appreciate the comments that Counselor Hammond made, because I think that those are definitely significant.
Yeah, I'll go back in history a little bit further and just say that this is a property that was also considered back in 2010. I think probably a similar discussion at the time that we really didn't see a long-term use for this for the school district for build out. So I think my own opinion would be is that I don't see a use for it for the school district, and with the oaks that are on there, certainly any area that's got oaks on it now, those are protected under the city code. And so I think that makes it even more attractive to the city as opposed to, some outside use.
Very interesting.
So I guess short answer is we're not opposed to looking at it and talking about it.
So
But
we'll
it's
get
not a
back
yes
to you.
either.
We'll get back to you through channels. With these two.
Yeah, we're gonna let them tell us kind of what the next step might be in terms of looking at it from an appraised value, and that you all can think about it in that regard.
Talk about it. I can contact, the realtor that did the evaluation for Robert Frost and kind of see. I can't even tell how big that really is. So it's like, is anybody?
It's a roughly 3 acres minus the X area. I didn't realize that was city property or the school property.
So it's kind of the part behind that soccer field.
Yeah, that sort of horseshoe shape around the soccer field.
The interest, I'm looking at Onyx on this lot. It's just that soccer field there really breaks that lot up into that you're saying that really weird shape. And I guess my only concern, I don't know, would not be ours. It's just like a road through there. Cause I could see how you guys would want to entertain that at the end of Liberty Street, tying into Mill Street. But I don't know if there's any room there with all those oak trees to even do that.
I haven't been on that soccer field, but based on the images I've looked at, like in terms of rotating it, wonder how hard that would be, and that might even make the geometry a little bit easier to understand and clearer about kind of where functionality would be. But that's, I think, putting that on the table of like, what would the long-term plan with that be to preserve that as an active field space, but also clarifying where exactly the boundaries of a transfer would be the conversation to that effect.
Yeah, want to identify that for sure first.
I was gonna say, presuming that we would not be in best case scenario, taking possession of the horseshoe without the soccer field. And as much as I would love every piece of ground to be a baseball field and never have a soccer field on it, the community can't live without that soccer.
Correct.
That's gotta be in place.
Right.
Yeah, we're already stretched down on fields. I agree with that.
Yeah, and that soccer field is where it is because of topography. I'm pretty sure it's why it's situated.
You
the way
can
it
turn
is.
it because of the hillside.
No, the hillside
Oh, got
dictates
it.
where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah, that space gets used for soccer and YMCA football. So I think the preservation of that, and that was, I guess, my only other question is just, sounds like historically long range, we didn't really see a specific use for it. So just to go back, make sure that on our end, we kind of reassess that and make sure that we don't see a future use now moving forward.
Right.
And then also, I think on our end, just being aware, if we did move forward, just what that space would truly be used for. If it is truly going to be used for a green space or a park, I think that would be another concern just because the proximity of the school.
Corey, you and I can go stomp around them.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else on that topic? Okay, Jason, safe routes.
All right, so you guys I think that must have come from you, or did that come from us? The Safe Route to School report from 2016?
That was from you guys.
That was from us. Okay.
Yeah, it's in your packet.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention this. Yeah, it's for me, and I think for many people on the council, it is if there's an obvious need, because as I look at this 2016 report, it's interesting that, 90% of it is still undone. And, I've had a lot of talks with Corey about this, and we're in a situation that our community, from what we're understanding at this point, is not eligible for Safe Routes to Schools dollars because of our income level. And so we're kind of in a situation where we have to pay for it ourselves. We also understand your folks' financial situation at the school district. I honestly, from where I'm sitting, me personally, just speaking for me, wouldn't expect you to pay for any of that either. Even though it's usually a partnership between the school district and the city. But I wanted to just state that it's on our radar. I'm concerned about Westfield out by Robert Frost. The council, even back when under Kyle Palmer as mayor, was very concerned about James and the opportunities we have there with kids crossing the street. And Corey and I have been in discussions with Marion County, because both of those happen to be county roads. And they seem very willing to be flexible as long as we pay for it. But we are looking at that. And I just wanted this to be on the agenda just to say that it's on our radar as opportunities. And I would love to say we could fix it all right away, but it's going to have to be chipped out a little bit at a time. We're in a little bit better situation at the city than where you guys are at right now, but that doesn't mean we have bottomless pockets either. So, but the crosswalk, there's things that stick out to me. So there was a teacher who, had people do letters to the mayor where they were like asking them, to talk about what they wrote to me. And it was interesting. Half of the comments were about sports fields and athletic facilities, which is what I was expecting, right? But the other half was about how dangerous it was to cross the street. And that was about Westfield and James. And I'm bringing it up just to say that we're concerned about it. We hope that you will partner with us when we talk to Marion County. And if we want to do a long shot grant, just to see if we can get it, if we try again, to try to move the needle on getting some more sidewalk and crosswalk spaces. And one of the trickiest things is, it was actually one of your employees that brought one situation to light, which is the crosswalk at James and Western. I'm bringing it up because there is none. Lack thereof, right? And the interesting thing is that was proposed by the city, but it's a county road. So the county says, well, it'd be a crosswalk to nowhere because there's no sidewalk on the other side. So even though it would increase safety and it would be a good thing for our kids, I think just to have that, even if it was a crosswalk just to a gravel parking lot. So all just saying, we're looking at it. I would love to hear your thoughts if you agree with some of the things that are found in this report. And we're looking at it.
Has James and C come up as well, where the railroad tracks are?
Yes, that has been a thorn in our side for a number of years. So if you think the county has a lot of influence, or the state or the federal government have a lot of influence, they're nothing in comparison to the railroads. So the complication with that intersection is that it's under the domain, or that one side of that intersection is under the domain of the railroads. That has made it complicated to try to create a safe situation there. We actually, just to give you an idea, they want, we've talked with them, and, and I've actually talked to Union Pacific, who is the main owner of that railroad, but then they sublet it to somebody else. So for Union Pacific, it's a profit maker, even though it's not in use, because somebody else is paying them to rent it from them, even though they're not using it. So who knows why they're doing that, because it hasn't been used in years. But they're not willing to abandon that line, even though it hasn't been used in years. And just to sit down with us, we were told, this is from city staff a few years ago, that just to sit down with us, them and talk about engineering it, we had to put $50,000 up front just to talk to them, to show that we were serious. And of course, they want to do a full update. which if you don't know, a full update of a railroad crossing and that's millions of dollars. Maybe you could get by with hundreds of thousands, but so it's definitely on our radar, but it is a very tough nut to crack.
Well, for my 3 cents on this one, I'm always curious what you guys come up with. I'm always, being born and raised here and seeing how much the town has changed, particularly with Pioneer and all the additional housing units, what it does to downtown. I know that we try really hard as a school district to stagger our busing times, knowing that it's really hard if you have kids at multiple schools trying to get from point A to point B, because there's only 3 ways to get across town through 3 bridges, and some are a lot bigger than others. And so I know that we've talked about this on long range, like where we might want to, like when we talked about the middle school, what if we put it over here? Like, well, how does that affect traffic? So it is on our radar. But as far as solutions, I'd be really curious what you guys got down the road. So
Have we checked the income threshold for property rate? Because I think it's gone up a little bit in the school district, so. I don't
Have to
know.
defer to the city manager if he has that.
Not readily available.
Not
I haven't
readily
been
available.
firsthand involved in a Safe Routes to Schools grant. I was getting most of that information from other staff and from the county, who plays a big role in helping to facilitate that, as well as ODOT, who administers it. So we definitely will and should continue to look at what that is and how we can position for that. We're trying to invest more money in actually designing things, because if you go and ask for money without a design, they're going to say, have you done your due diligence? Have you surveyed it? Have you found all the things that are buried down below, et cetera? And so if we have the design, we can go and actually make a compelling case, as long as we have the eligibility criteria. And we have the county, at least for the last meeting I had with them, doing preliminary design work on the James and C Street intersection, as well as looking at James, as well as looking at East Main and a couple of other areas that they own that are either in the city and get a lot of traffic, or a little more at the edge of the city and feel a little more rural in terms of pedestrian facilities or whatnot, to at least try to get that ball rolling. And we're also doing a pedestrian safety audit right now to even better understand where some of those hotspots are in terms of potential conflict points. It's challenging when you talk with ODOT, and one of their metrics is, well, how bad are the crashes there? How many crashes have there been? And that's a lot of times what focuses their mind eye in terms of scarce resource allocation. And, that it's hard to say that at a local level. Well, wait till someone gets hit, wait till something happens. And so we're not trying to do that, but we're understanding that we have to operate within that system. And a lot of times that means us being proactive and pulling them to the table as a partner, so they know that we're serious, we can put skin in the game and actually try to make something happen. So that's one of the council goals for this year, is that partnership with ODOT and with the county, specifically around transportation safety and pedestrian and bike safety.
Honestly, I appreciate you staying at it and being willing to look forward and not waiting until something terrible happens. I think we actually did have a pedestrian get struck in front of Robert Frost, remember, last year. So this does happen, and it's dark and wet when kids are walking to and from school. So as I kind of look at this, the increasing the sidewalk access is probably pretty significant. And then also some of the actual sidewalk crossings, as opposed to putting a new bike parking space. I would prioritize things where we can get kids off of the roadway and pedestrians off of the roadway, so they're not encountering vehicles as they're going to and from school. So as a concept, I'm on board with further discussion, seeing what we can do to move the ball forward a little bit.
Yeah.
I appreciate knowing that it's still on your radar.
So
Very much so.
Jason, looks like all the recommendations are from this report. Am I correct?
What's that?
The recommendations already been made. This is my first time seeing this today.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and I hadn't looked at it in a while, and I was like, wow, all this is the same exact stuff that we were talking about 8 years ago, and it's still not done. So, and that bothers me, and I'm admitting that and saying that we're aware of that. It's something that we want to try to figure out.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Kim, support for teens and others experiencing housing and school.
So we had a city council meeting the other night and I attended and watched you guys in session. Thank you for your thorough discussion of the homeless issue in our community and housing instability. And I just wanted to open the floor for a discussion about how we move forward together as a community to try and provide support for youth that are experiencing housing instability and also other community members. I know that we have a valuable partnership with Sheltering Silverton. I mean, I think they do amazing work in this area. And so I wanted to open that up for discussion and to just see what other alternatives are out there beyond what you guys discussed the other night.
If I missed this, what percentage of our kids are experiencing this?
I think we have about, right now, I think we have about 120 kids in the district, according to the McKinney-Vento census.
Out of our 3,600?
And a lot of those are teen age students that are, couch surfing, some of that. So it's in the older kids usually. But some families. And we offer them support, but the grant we had through, I think it's the county, the grant we had for McKinney-Vento. Wasn't federal.
There was a federal grant for the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children Again.
Oh,
That wasn't federal.
Yeah.
The ESSER 3 fund.
Yeah, okay, so that was part of ESSER 3, which has gone away, which left us, less resources to help families in need and students in need.
You said that we didn't talk about when you were there last time, but the last meeting, I don't have anything to add that we didn't talk about at the last meeting. But I do want to reiterate that council is very focused on homelessness in the community because it exists and it's a problem, and there are external factors that are also pushing us to need to look at it. But the council is also spoken to that we are very concerned specifically about the teen homelessness in Silverton, because right now what is happening, and we will honestly admit this is what's happening, is the only real resource in the community for homeless teens is you guys. It's all falling on you because Sheltering Silverton is currently not certified to provide services to teenagers because the legal requirements for somebody under 18 and being certified to be able to handle them and that sort of thing as far as managing their facilities is beyond a new nonprofit's ability to be able to manage that. So we have not gone through goal setting for our next session. We're looking at goal setting in about a month. But I know that it's on a lot of the counselors' minds to look at teen homelessness in Silverton. And I think the biggest thing is really doing what you're already doing and supporting when we try to figure out, what kind of solutions we can come up with to take teen support from just what they're getting from the Sequoia School and getting beyond that to providing more in-depth services to teenagers that are experiencing homelessness. So I don't have any great new ideas to give you other than to say we're working on that, but we're going to need your continued partnership in order to make that happen. That's going to be very important.
That would be great. And I did talk to Sarah White, and she told me that Sheltering Silverton was running a grant and trying to get, more housing for teens that are suffering from or having housing instability. And we're just really interested in supporting our kids and making sure that they have what they need. I know that, there's other organizations that give support to our kids like Rotary and, they did a shoe shopping adventure for kids and the community. And, I think that we just want to be open to the discussion and work with you guys as partners as we move forward to find, better solutions for kids and for the community. And so just really trying to open the door up for further conversation and just make sure that we're supporting our kids as best we can. We're really sad with the grant funding dried up. That was really difficult. We took a small amount of Title I funds from the federal government. We used a little bit of that, but it's really not nearly enough for what we need. So we will look at other grant funds and try to support students in that way. But we are excited about partnering with you to try and find better schools for our teams and others.
What could you outline just a quick overview of what we do now in support of the homeless teens?
Yeah, so we have a community liaison, so that's Yolanda Zavala, and Yolanda works with families whenever they're having, not just homelessness, but other issues or other struggles, and so she provides support and resources and different things depending on what they need. We have a social worker that also helps students navigate that or any other challenges they're having, and so you know, we have resources upstairs in the district office that Yolanda can pull from. But at some point, we'll have to replenish those. And because of the tight budget this year, we haven't been able to do that. So those will run low at some point. She does a really good job meeting with families, and she's bilingual, so that's really nice. So, you know, we do, and Sequoia does a lot of support for kids just in general. Sequoia, you know, they get resources for kids all the time when kids are in need or have an emergency. And so they actually have a grant, a ROG grant, and some other resources. And we had a community member donate some funds to Sequoia last year to help support kids. So Sequoia does the bulk of the work in this area, and they do an amazing job supporting kids.
Kim, what about McKinney-Vento? When a student is identified as a McKinney-Vento student, how does that help?
Yeah, so kids, when you have a student that has housing instability that's been removed from their home, if they were a district resident in our district, we transport them back. So even if they were in Salem or Malala or Woodburn or wherever they were at, we bus them back to their home district so that they can have consistent schools. So they don't have to switch schools. So I think that's the really an important part of the McKinney-Vento Act, is that it allows students to remain in their home district where they've been for a while. And it provides other support too, but the federal funding for it isn't very robust.
Got it.
And we share transport with other districts. So federal regulations say that, you know, we will bus them one way and they bus the other. So we share the transportation costs.
Is there
Thank
any
you.
county level support?
Question. Yeah, I think Shelter in Silverton's trying to get some capital support, but yeah, we got to.
I just want to add that Sequoia is an amazing resource, and they do incredible work there. And I recognize the number of students that fall into the description of homelessness, but not that many years ago when Sheltering Silverton was a fledgling organization, that number was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it's gone up quite a bit. How many students would you say are living in their cars, though? Do we have any definition on that?
Older students living in their car.
High school age.
I don't know, but Kyle, I'll find out and report back to you. I'm not sure. Like we do take a like an inventory, like where they're staying. So like the hotel, it's a, you know, what is it? A car, you know, so we do track that information in our registration system. I just don't have it off the top of my head, but I can let you know.
I have a question on this one because this one's just messing with my head a lot. Because I know a lot of these kids, I know some, like one of them sleeping in his car. Just saw him the other day. Like, what do we do? Like, is there anything we can do? I mean, obviously, if we had all the money in the world, we would do a lot more, but I know Sequoia, they bear the counselors bear the brunt end of this. Say you find out a kid is in his car. Does that elicit some type of action or response that we're required to do? Or we're just like, tough luck, kid? Like, you know, I mean, like, you know,
I don't think it's ever tough luck, kid. I think we're trying to find support for that student all the time. Yeah, I think reaching out and trying to help them find solutions, and it's really tough. Those are tough situations.
because Derek, you know, that's a county, state. I mean, it's not just our responsibility, it's all of our responsibilities between all our departments to help these kids. But it just seems like we're running out of resources or something.
I just wanted to comment on Kyle's question. This is just anecdotal, but I worked at elementary in Woodburn after the pandemic, and that was the first time I'd ever seen elementary families living in cars. And just last week at my work now, I work at Woodburn High School, somebody not going to school because like, I haven't seen you for a while. How come? Well, I didn't have any clean clothes. And I know Sequoia has a washing machine and all of that. But I think that's probably, we could probably use washing machines in all of our schools.
We have washing machines across the district.
Yeah. Those are important things that I just wanted to bring to light because we don't always think about those things, but they're happening.
Yeah. Did not know that. Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, in the interest of keeping everybody on schedule tonight, we need to end this. And again, I want to thank the city for your participation in this. And it was some good discussion tonight and some good seeds planted, I think. And so that'll be good.
I would like to say thank you for hosting. We go back and forth hosting each other, and I just would like to express I feel this is very useful. And as you know, we're stopping before we're done with the agenda because we're running out of time.
Right.
I think it just highlights the importance of us doing this more often, and I hope that we can do that. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Okay.
And we host next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Joint session is over.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, agenda review.
I move to adopt the agenda as posted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passed unanimously. Consent agenda.
Move to pass the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved in second, any discussion, first of all, but been moved in second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passed unanimously. Okay, and then we have our student representatives, Kai and Mariah.
Hello, my name is Mariah Wacker, and I am a sophomore and one of the ASB school board representatives from Silverton High School.
My name is Kai Hawley, and I'm a senior and the other ASB school board representative. We are presenting on behalf of the student body as a whole.
We are very excited to announce that we are starting up our Best Fox Ever season.
ASB is currently holding informational meetings for seniors interested in participating in the show, along with kicking off our advertising campaign.
We are excited to work hard this Best Fox Ever season to help raise money for SACA and Medical Teams International.
Our show date is April 19th, so make sure you mark your calendars and spread the word.
Next, we are excited to announce that winter sports are going strong. Varsity boys and girls wrestling got back from their invitational meet in Reno. Both teams did exceptionally well, having competitors that placed. The swim team had a meet last week, the Malala Invitational, and did incredible, with girls and boys teams both placing first.
Boys basketball has been working hard with a 6-3 record, and girls basketball is killing it with a 9-1 record. Check out the OSAA website to follow upcoming games and cheer on our Foxes this season.
Our theater department is kicking off Newsies, with rehearsals going strong. Newsies is a Disney Broadway classic based on the New York City newsboy strike of 1899. Show dates will be the weekend of Valentine's Day along with the following weekend.
We hope you bring your friends and family to come support our talented students. Our clubs and activities at the high school are continuing their success through this winter season as well. Our clubs meet once a month on Tuesdays at the high school during AG and other times outside of school as well.
We also want to give a big thank you from the student body for the new lights in the gravel parking lot.
We are so appreciative of this new addition. We can't thank you enough for your contribution to improving our school.
We want to make sure everyone knows that we continue to post information about upcoming events and happenings at Silverton High School on our social media pages, the Silverton High School website, and on Parent Square.
We are excited about what's in store for the continuation of the school year, where our focus is to be great Foxes who exemplify our Fox values of respect, dignity, compassion, and inclusion.
Thank you everyone for all your support and hard work to ensure we have the best school year possible. Go Foxes!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have representatives from Silver Falls Education Association. Come on down, ladies.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Welcome back to a new year. First, we'd like to thank all the board, all of you board members as part of Board Appreciation Month. Your commitment to our schools, students, and community does not go unnoticed. We appreciate seeing your involvement outside of these monthly meetings, getting to know staff, and seeing firsthand all of our students' fantastic accomplishments. To our newly elected members, thank you for doing all that you could have done to help us navigate these challenging times. Nothing like learning on the fly. For our veteran board members, thank you for keeping what is best for our students at the forefront of your decisions. It has been wonderful watching the collaboration that has happened this year. We are so thankful for the stability of our board during what has been an extremely challenging year. There's really no change as far as the licensed staff is concerned, other than what you've heard from us before. Still stressful, but we still show up every day to ensure that our students are getting the education that they deserve. This last Monday was our second year with a work day directly after winter break, and it was such a serious at the end of the month. And we also wanted to take the opportunity of having all of our building principals in the room all at once and to thank all of you. Teachers' jobs are still challenging, but we see that you are doing everything that you can to help us and our students. You have been so supportive, ensuring our buildings move forward each day and making us look at the positives despite the turmoil that this year has brought. And we truly appreciate all of you guys.
Lord,
guys
that
as
means
well.
a lot.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you for showing up every day. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, before we go to public comment, I just want to make a point on behalf of the board, thanking all the schools for their nice cards and posters and everything. We've got big banner across the front here. Victor Point and Evergreen and Butte Creek and Mark Twain, I believe we've got a big card here. We've got some very nice socks that we all get to pick a pair before we leave. Gifts, and so I just wanted to thank everybody for showing that appreciation. It means a lot. Okay, and now for public comment. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, recognized by the board chair. If attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature within Zoom. For the record, please provide your name and relationship to the district. Please keep individual remarks to 3 minutes. If speaking as a representative on behalf of a group of 3 or more, comment time will be extended to 5 minutes. Second public comment period will occur later in the meeting that is specific to discussion and action items only. The board will not hear complaints against individual district staff or board members during public comment. Please understand the board's primary role is to listen, and you likely will not receive an immediate response. Finally, remember, we all model the way our students and ask you share your thoughts respectfully in accordance with the Silver Falls School District Board Decorum Agreement. Do we have any public comment present here? Do we have anyone online?
We have no hands raised online at this time.
Okay, and we will move on. Superintendent report, Kim?
Okay, well, this evening I'm going to start out with talking about the overflow parking lot, which you just heard a couple tidbits from the kids about. We had some really generous donors put lighting in a really dark place in the high school. And that has been such a great safety upgrade for us. So I just want to read the letter that I wrote to them so that you can kind of know who was involved in that project, and it was seamless and perfect, and I just was really elated about it. So thank you to the Fox Foundation, Bullseye Directional Boring, K&E Excavating, and Kinsey Electric. So the district's beyond grateful for the thoughtful contribution to our high school campus. The lighting project that they completed for the overflow lot increases safety and visibility for our students and staff members, bringing a heightened sense of security in that area. Generous donors like this make our community an amazing place to live and learn. I'm really amazed by the generosity and kindness of parents and partners in our small town, and feel privileged to serve as your superintendent. Thank you to them for playing such an enormous and important role in the life of our students in school. And we could not provide the level of education and experience for our students without this show of support and kindness. And you have a picture of the lit up area in your board packet. So that's kind of fun.
What a wonderful
Vast improvement.
surprise. That is amazing.
Yeah, it really was a wonderful surprise. And I went over there once, met with them once, and then they just like went back and it was like halfway done. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are almost already halfway done. And I didn't even know they were working hardly. So they worked it in around the kids, and it's just going to be so much better. I'm so excited. Okay. And it's great for staff too, because we have staff that work over there. So I'm going to go into my report for January. So I've got 3 agenda items today. I'm going to give you a quick goal progress update. There's some overlap from last time, and I'm going to talk about your beautiful service to the district. And then my last agenda item is to talk about Kim Dowd's great accomplishment, new one. So it is Board Appreciation Month, and you are our superheroes. And so I just think about this all the time, the time and dedication and you know, the real thoughtfulness that you have around the decisions we make for the district, and how you support us and how you listen, and the caring way that you have, and how collaborative you are, and how well you work together. That's not every school board can say that. And so I think I think you do an exceptional job helping guide the district. And I just really can't say enough about how great you are. So I left you a little gift. It is under the amount that I'm supposed to spend, and I spent my own money. I always tell everybody, because I don't spend any district funds on these things. So the weird little things I do are all my own. So and there's more socks in there. I'm really sorry, but I thought you all needed Fox socks.
Yes.
Thank you,
Sean
Kim.
would agree. Okay, so then oh my God, here. So this is my goal update. I'll look at KJ. She's so cute. So this is KJ and I at the parade. I just throw fun pictures in here because I thought it was great. This is right before we rounded the corner where Tony was in his box suit. So I'm going to give you a quick, this is a quick goal update. So this was my first goal, and that is this one really happens. I mean, it's ongoing. Kim and I are working on it constantly, but it really happens later in the spring. So this is for Kim and I to craft a 25-26 budget that has an ending fund balance that lands somewhere in that zone, 2 to 3 million. I think we're going to make it. So we're doing some things to try and work towards that goal. So after I went to Jackie Olson's session at the OASBO conference, I told Kim, I said, we need to add these things. And I felt bad saying it to Kim because Kim already does so much work. I don't want to add anything extra to her plate, but when Jackie talks, people listen, because Jackie really knows things. And she said, you should have a cash flow discussion, bank reconciliations, and like just more frequent meetings between her and I about, where we're headed and things we need to adjust. And so that's been really helpful. And I spent an hour with Kim, and Kim showed me November's bank statement just for one account. It's this thick. So the amount of stuff that Kim's department manages is really incredible. And I learned a lot of things in that meeting, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So Kim and I are always sharing things back and forth. And what does Amanda call it? What did she call it the other day when we mindstorm, when we were going back and forth? She likes, Amanda's like this, watching us go back. We're talking about budgets then. So it's pretty interesting. You're going to hear about the audit tonight, and we have a clean audit, and I think that, you know, I think that publicly, sometimes when people go, well, how can that happen because of the issues we had? But the issues are not with our accounting procedures. The issues were with how we spent money and how much we spent. And so, you know, I think having a clean audit is a real testament to Kim and her department and how they navigate those very complicated, this school finance is very complicated. So I will say that having an audit without really any significant findings is a big deal for a district who had a financial crisis like that. We are going to convene the budget committee a little early to work on our priorities, and we just talked about that earlier. We are projecting an ending fund balance right now of about $2 million, but the caveat with that is that we still do not have our state school fund adjustment. And we really, I called like high people. I'm like, hey, why? And nobody can tell me why. Like I went to Josh.
Just us?
No, the whole state.
Oh, okay.
Everyone in the state. So Kim, do you want to tell them what that is real quick?
Yeah, so historically, the state of Oregon Department of Education has rebalanced the state school fund every November. They chose, they did not produce a rebalance year. The statement was made that they did not see significant movement statewide in the fall reports that we, out of our hundreds of reports that we submit every year, that they did not see significant movement. And with that information and our significant movement in enrollment this year, if that does hold true, I do project, as I've been sharing, that we could potentially see a fair reduction in our state school fund with the rebalancing. That will take place now in February or March, giving us only potentially 2 or 3 state school fund, depending on when that comes out. We may have very few state school fund payments to have that adjustment made in.
Yeah, so it's not, I don't think it's ideal. It's not their normal practice. It's out of character. And so even though they say that, you know, the enrollment reports are kind of just similar, it still makes me nervous. So we'll deal with it as it comes. We're doing a really good job right now, you know, spending really wisely and being smart about how we do things. So I think we'll be okay, but it is something to keep in mind as we go along.
Just one on that. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. You're good.
So are they decreasing the frequency of which they pay us?
No,
they're
it's
just
not about the
late?
payment. It's about.
Oh, the amount.
Currently we are, you know, receiving our 1/12 payments, although it's this timing of that is different, but we are receiving our state school fund as it was projected last school year. It has not been adjusted for the movements across the state for this school year. So while we have seen great movement, if it is accurate that the rest of the state is not seeing great movement in enrollment, that will result in a negative adjustment for us for the current year state school fund. Remember, in May, we have an adjustment for last year's state school fund, and I do expect that also to be negative. Now, it was budgeted to be negative. I was expecting a negative adjustment, if you will. So knowing the scope of those is what is really keeping us from. While right now, yes, we are projecting a $2.2 million ending fund balance. That is with the current ODE state school fund estimate. So again, we anticipate seeing some movement.
My concern was that they weren't paying us, even though we're going to fall within our budget, but they're out. And then we're not able to cover our bills because they're pushing us out, but that's not the issue.
No, they're just
Okay.
paying us on what we reported, but like our enrollment was a little bit decreased. And so, you know, it just depends on what enrollment does across other schools in the state.
Sorry.
The opposite of looking forward to a bonus.
Well, sometimes it is a bonus.
I know if ours went up, but
It could be a positive.
but
It's not always negative.
but
I've just experienced a lot of negative, but it's not always.
And Superintendent, did I hear you correct? The expectations will get something in February or March?
I hope so,
potentially?
yeah.
Okay. But nothing, there's not firm date as of right now.
No, I'm hearing February from other superintendents.
Yeah, Friday was the deadline for what they call an estimate of membership and revenue, and it is an update of information. We have to estimate current year and 25-26 property tax collections, high cost disability, how many students are going to fall into each of these specialized categories. It is very complex. So yeah, that's
So if it is rebalanced, so the further that date gets pushed out, the less time we have to make
correct.
course corrections.
Correct.
To
Correct.
absorb the correction,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? We met with the CTE team, we met with Kirsten Barnes at the high school. That was really interesting, and we talked about CTE programs and priorities for them, and that was a really interesting meeting. They, they have a lot of funding from High School Success and the Student Investment Account. And so just talking about that process with them and how that works. And so that was a really interesting meeting. And thank you for Kim to, she shared a lot of budget details with them that they might not have ordinarily received. So that was really nice. We are going to have a budget line item in the budget for deferred maintenance and roofing. And, I talked to Jeff Alderman this week, and he shared another tidbit with me that our football turf is not 9 years old. And I'm like, and it's supposed to be replaced every 10 years. And so that's about $1 million. So, there are things that we have to start planning for, and they're pretty significant, some of them. So I will tell you, and you all got my email today. We do have two audits, not audits, but like assessments from ODE. So ODE is going to come in and do a security and safety assessment for us. And they're going to look at every single building and tell us what we need to add to each building to make it as secure for students as possible and staff. And the reason I asked them to do that, and it's not a gotcha, they're not going to come in and say, you must do this. It's just like, hey, this would be best practice. This would be what would make the building the most secure. The reason I asked them to do that is because that site assessment is required for the COPS grant. So if you write the COPS grant without a site assessment, they look at you like, how do you even know what you're writing it about? And so I need that data so that I can write the COPS grant, because it will craft the grant for me where we need those improvements. The other is that ODE is reviewing every facility, every school facility in the state, all 213 districts and ESDs, every single building, literally. And so I met with them today, and they are going to come out to the district in February. And so Jeff Alderman and I will manage that, and Jeff will tour them around, and we have to do a building pre-survey. And they're doing that so that they have information to give the legislature about what our school buildings actually look like and what kind of conditions our kids are in. And, I'm going to unlock Area 38, and I'm going to take them into that part of the middle school. And they're going to be astounded about that part of our district and what that building looks like, and not in a good way. And so I think having these really frank conversations about some of the things, some of the ways that funding does not allow us to maintain or improve or update facilities, that's not like that in other states. And so I think that is a really important part of our budget conversation. And so they're coming in late February, and we're in the first round. So we're in the first group.
This is information we could use for long range as well?
Yes, that is exactly what it's for. So when you go into that email, Josh, it gives you a couple of tidbits about what that's for, but it is for long range facility planning. It's to craft a 5-year plan. Now they will have some, I don't want to say rough estimates, but they're not contractor grade estimates. So they'll take like what the average cost would be for a middle school building or whatever. That's not what the actual bid would be. So that facilities assessment, it does include some information about what those things would cost, but of course you would still have to get bids and go through the bidding process like any other large scale purchase. But I think it will give us some idea about where we need to focus our energy.
How frequently has this been done by ODE in the past? Is this something that they've never done before?
They've never done this. And so part 3 of this is that it also includes an ADA assessment. Yeah. So they'll come in, and Tony will lead that part of it. So when they come in to do an ADA assessment, Tony will tour them around and talked to them about, ADA access in the district, and there's a lot of places in our district that need to be improved.
It's
So-
good to hear that. I'm cautiously hopeful, dare I say, because, okay, great. What are you gonna do with it, ODE? Like, and I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just saying, what are you gonna do with it? Because, I mean, multiple districts across our state have been in dire need of facilities for decades, and they haven't done anything about it. It's all up to local bonds or levies or whatever it have you, but other states, like you said, it's not like that.
Yeah, I think what happened is Charlene Williams, Dr. Williams did a tour of all school districts in the state when she first came in as the ODE director. And she came and looked at our buildings, and she was pretty upset when she was in Douglas County. She saw a gym in Oakland that was condemned. I mean, there were a lot of really, Winston Dillard has a building that was built in 1898. You can do the math on that. And so she was like, wow, our facilities need a lot of work. And I think she went back to the legislature and to the governor and said, we have a major equity issue, because what happens is when you have those facilities, if you can pass a bond, you're in business, right? You can build a new building, you got great facilities for kids. If you're in an area that has a difficult time doing that, which I mean, we really need to pass a bond. I know that previous administration talked about it a lot. I have some different ideas and strategies about how we do that, but I think that moving forward, we are going to have to replace the middle school at some point. And
Yesterday would have been good.
yes, yesterday would have been great. So this is just a larger discussion, but that is part of our budget analysis and part of my process when I'm trying to craft my goal. That was an important part of it, was to have a better idea.
So Kim, they are paying for these assessments. We do not. Have
Yeah,
to pay.
they're paying for them, and they actually partnered with a group called I think it was Buena Veritas.
Yep, it's right.
Yeah.
That's where I was confused, because I knew the first one was ODE, and I saw this other group because I'm still a little bit PTSD'd from the last long range and how that went. It was like, how do these groups get picked that are doing the assessments? But I see that ODE assigned it, so.
The first one, the safety and security assessment, I sought out the ODE person that's in charge of that and said, hey, how do I do this? I need help. I need an assessment, because we had a grant person that did it through ODE previously when I was in the south part of the state, but I didn't know who that person was here. And so I just went directly to ODE, and they're like, oh, we'll come right out and take care of it. So they're going through all 13 buildings. And then the second part, the facilities and ADA assessment, that's generated by the governor, the legislature, and ODE. That's all districts. We did not ask for it. But we are happy to have them through so that the legislature has a really clear idea that our facilities are failing. And they've got to find some other way to fund a facility rather than just a bond. Like, they either need to pay us more so that we can save funds to upgrade and repair and replace things, or they need to have a fund. And I think they're thinking a separate fund that's set aside either by grant or by petition or by application, where you say, hey, I've got this building, was built in 1938 and I need to replace it. And here's my application. So I don't know what that would look like exactly.
Then the state would prioritize
Yes.
those.
And it's
Yeah.
fair to say, if we're in the first round and they're doing it in February, this isn't for this session to look at.
Oh, no.
This is down the road.
Yeah, and actually ODE thought when I was on that meeting today, they said if they had taken care of this themselves, it would take 5 years. And so for them to be partnering with this other agency has cut the time in half. So it's
3 years.
Yeah,
It's a
2.5 to 3 is what they said. Yeah, so instead of 5, so it really, lowers the amount, so. Any other questions with that? And we did send an administrator survey about building priorities for next year, and they've already filled that out, and we're going to discuss that tomorrow. Your board packet does not include the 8-page updated document, but I'll send you that. I forgot to put it in there. My bad. My human side's showing this week.
I kept looking where that 8-page was.
Yeah, welcome back to work. It's just a continuation. You had the 6-pager last time. It's just longer and there's more things on it. I just did an interview with Stephen Floyd for our town newspaper to discuss budget and highlights, and I actually included Krista Parent of COSA on that meeting, and I included Kim Dowd so that he would have really good information about the budget situation in the state. And that's part of that continued advocacy at the state level. Strategizing communication for upcoming budget, Bomber, who's talked about that. And we did a joint city session today, and then we're gonna do our work session on the 27th, the integrated planning. And goal number 3 is organizational management. And so the admin team met to determine our priorities for the upcoming school year, and our focus included an MTSS system, completing the behavior framework, code of conduct, and strategic planning. So they really want to, and so my next thing in January is to start looking at how to do that strategic plan process without spending a lot of money on it. We are busy revising the website, and I sent you guys an email the other day about contact information. And so Kelly's just really trying to clean that up and make it look more streamlined. She added a health and wellness page, which is really nice for families. And it helps manage our compliance with the Division 22 standards related to health curriculum. And we have health curriculum materials on display at the district office, but there aren't very many that were approved. So it's like, you come look at the 1 or 2 there. It's a very small group. I am going to a health curriculum like showcase on the 23rd or 24th. So I'll let you know how that goes. And then I talked about the security system already. Any questions on my goals that I'm working on? No?
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for all your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime you guys have questions, feel free to reach out. So Kim Dowd is like a big shiny star tonight. So Kim recently completed her ASBO International Certificate of Administration of School Business and Finance Operations. And this is a really prestigious designation. It enables her to guide our district with grace and precision like she has been. And so I just thought we should just really celebrate her. So I was going to give Kim a big round of applause. There are a couple letters in your packet about that certification. And I know that Kim was so worried. She had to take this big 4-hour test, and we're all, trying to stay out of her hair, which is easier said than done. And she actually took it on a day when most of us weren't there. And so she was worried she wouldn't pass. I said, oh, you're gonna pass. She passed. So we're really excited about that. I will say that getting the district in a better financial situation, it has been all Kim's doing. And she is very professional and serious and knows exactly where we need to go. And I really appreciate her guidance and her knowledge about all things budget related. And I will say I've worked with a lot of really experienced financial officers that have 20, 30 years of experience, and Kim is as good as all of those people right now. Woo-hoo, congratulations.
If I won't take but a couple seconds, but I'd like to read what was sent to the board.
Yeah, sure.
In regards to that. This is from Pamela Mangini, the SFO of ASBO International. I'm pleased to inform you that Kim Dowd of Silver Falls School District recently achieved the certified administrator of school finance and operations, SFO certification from the Association of School Business Officials International. SFO certification is granted to highly qualified individuals who fulfill multiple requirements, including proving eligibility through work experience and education, passing a comprehensive exam that tests competency in accounting and school business management topics, and adhering to the ASBO International Certification Code of Conduct. SFO certification demonstrates a commitment to high standards and ethical practice in school business management. School business officials who earn this credential commit to ongoing professional development and undergo recertification every 3 years. Please join us in congratulating Kim Dowd on this significant career accomplishment. So, and it is very significant. And Kim's a treasure and for our district and very important to us. So thank
Like
you.
the master's degree of school finance and operation. Yeah, it's that was a lot of work.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's my honor to serve. So thank you.
Okay. And I think, oh, I have one more thing on here.
Oh, okay.
This, okay, here it comes, maybe. This is from the Robert Frost.
We appreciate the school board for always caring about kids like us. We appreciate the time and effort you put into making our school the best it can be. You are helping us build a bright future, one student at a time. For making sure our school has what we need to prepare for middle school and beyond. Your hard work inspires us to work hard too. We are so thankful for your support in providing programs that challenge us and help us become leaders. You are making a real difference in our lives. Thank you. Thank you for supporting our teachers and making sure we have what we need to succeed. We are grateful for all you do to make our school amazing. We appreciate the school board for giving us opportunities to explore new subjects and ideas. Your work makes our learning experience the best it can be. You make a big difference by helping our school have cool things like art and music. Thank you for helping us get the books and supplies we need to be great readers and writers. We are so thankful for your hard work to make our school safe and happy. Thank you, school board, for helping our school be a place where we can learn and grow. We appreciate the board for making sure our classrooms are full of fun and learning. We're gonna read it. Thank you for everything you support our family, teachers, our membership makes a big difference, a big difference in our success.
Robert Frost. We're on to Kim now.
Okay, Kim, you're up.
Wonderful, thank you. So the agenda has our financials and enrollment up first. I just want to, in light of timing, take just a moment, let people know, please take your time to review our financial statements that are available online. Just a few quick highlights on some of the key changes. As December has come to a close, we've received a great deal of the new property tax year receipts, and I am very happy to report that those are coming in higher than budgeted. So you will see that if you were to compare to prior month reports, I have increased our projection for property tax collections this year. So that is great news. Again, as we touched on, state school fund remains the big unknown. Right now, we are projecting the most recent estimate that was released after our budget was adopted. That estimate had us $540,000 below the estimate that was available at the time of the budget. I do believe we need to be prepared for potentially another downturn in that amount. However, overall, we are right now projecting revenues to come in approximately $280,000 above budget. Again, that is with the current state school fund estimate. On the expenditure side, I really just want to continue to thank our administrators, our staff, our departments. Everybody is pointing the same direction and we are working toward a great outcome. Right now, I'm projecting we could end the year $1.9 million under budget. That is absolutely incredible, and that will make a huge difference if this state school fund adjustment does unfortunately create some potential revenue changes. So one huge piece of note is the expenditure down towards the very bottom under the actual expenditures, a $3.903 million expenditure that went out the door in December. That you won't hear me say this very often, but that feels great to have paid. That is the tax anticipation note. It has been fully satisfied, paid in full. No further expenditures remain for that tax anticipation note. That was, again, the short-term cash flow that was necessary. That final payment was principal of $3.805 million, interest charges of just over $98,000. However, the interest earnings from being extremely diligent about these TAN proceeds, and we'll talk about that a little bit during the audit, the interest earnings totaled over $118,000, $20,000 more than what we were charged in interest. So we do need to factor in that in the prior fiscal year, there was an issuance cost of $62,000. However, that $20,000 of extra interest does help offset that. So net cost to the district, there was a $42,000 net cost, but thanks to a lot of I would call it tight cash flow management by the business services team, really making sure that the majority of our money was invested in the highest interest earning accounts at all times. That makes the difference. And so I just really want to thank my team for really watching. There are a lot of bank transfers because we want that money in either a money market or local government investment pool, whichever is earning the higher interest day by day. We are making sure it's where it needs to be. So interest rates were definitely in our favor. We were in the 5.5% earning range most of that time, while the loan itself was in the 4.5% range. So
Very good team.
huge thing. So one final piece, the enrollment report is also attached online. Very happy to see an increase of 8 students just over the December report. Hey, we will welcome them all. I do ask that you take a moment to take a look, though, at some of the per grade numbers. You know, this year's senior versus junior class, the senior class is just organically 16 students lower right now. But even more importantly, if we take a look at the difference between our senior class and our kindergarten class, should next year's kindergarten class come in similar, which we do anticipate, we could be seeing another reduction of 90 students, equivalent to another $1 million state school fund reduction, just due to enrollment. So we really need to keep in mind the critical need to have accurate enrollment projections to adequately project our revenues, but also to allocate resources adequately.
I just wanted to note that on the expenditure side, there's very few parentheses.
We
Way more on the other side. Good job.
It is, and yes, and there are a couple, and we have one up in our instruction category, and I dug into it, and we budgeted so tight this year that somebody changed from, one type of health insurance benefit to another, and that alone made the difference. We, in our support services under student safety, we chose to reallocate some funding from another category to add a high school behavior support classroom. I apologize, I'm failing on the name of the program right now, but it's another classroom. So really, yes, we are over budget in student safety, but we did use that from another area. So see, the difficulty of when you get down to this granular of a level and you make slight adjustments in your programming, you could see that. But the key, again, everyone in this district is all, doing an amazing job of righting this ship. And I appreciate, the kind words, but I am here just helping helping report on it. It is the efforts of every single person in this district that are making this happen. So appreciate it to everybody.
Yeah.
Any questions on any of that?
Well, guess we're ready for the audit report then.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I'm very pleased again to present another chapter in closing our prior fiscal year, presenting the Silver Falls School District audited financial report for the 2023-24 fiscal year. Our audit was completed by Polly Rogers & Co., led by our municipal auditor, Kenny Allen. Kenny is joining us via Zoom tonight, and we'll begin tonight's audit presentation with a summary of the results and some key points. And then I will then share an overview of the document, highlighting some key takeaways. For those of you that are joining us online, you're welcome to view or download the audit document through the agenda on BoardBook. And with that, I want to thank Kenny for his patience for waiting for us, but I'd like to turn it over to you. Thank you, Kenny.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I don't think you got it in your packet, but there's a 6-page board letter that I emailed out this afternoon that kind of highlights the audit process. And that's the document I'll be going over right now. The purpose of the audit was designed to determine fair presentation with generally accepted accounting principles, audit standards, the Federal Single Audit Act, as well as Oregon minimum standards for audits. The results of the audit on page 1 of the large financial report is the overall financial opinion, and we issued a unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which is the highest level opinion that auditors can give. Next, we also have what we call our Oregon minimum standards for audits. It's additional procedures required for financial audits by the state of Oregon. We have to look at things such as budget, collateral, purchasing, debt, and other items that are noted on page 65 of the large report, and there was no issues requiring comment in that section of the audit as well. Next, in the large document on page 74, this is what we call our Federal Single Audit Act. This is when you expend more than $750,000 of federal monies. We have to go through and look at a few grants, federal grants, to see if there's any compliance issues or question costs. And we were pleased to note that there was no question cost or any material non-compliance noted in our procedures. So again, clean opinion on the Federal Single Audit Act. Next, there was no disagreements during the audit, and there was no difficulties in performing the audit. If there were any, we'd have to note those in our board letter. So next, there was a few in the board letter. There is a few new standards. I won't bore you with those details. I'm sure Kim and I can work through those next year. But as every year, there seems to be more and more standards. It used to be maybe once every 3 years, about 20 years ago when I started, that once every 3 years, we'd get a new standard. Now it seems like every year we're getting 2 to 3 new standards every year. So it's the amount of new standards is definitely more than tripled or whatever, quadrupled, whatever it is. It's definitely quite a bit more information that your staff has to get accustomed to every year. Next, I'll kind of skip to, there's page 5 of the board letter. There is some best practice comments that we noted in there. And the first one is that there in your special revenue funds, you appropriate on the whole 200 level, but there's, I don't know how many there are, but there's probably 40 sub funds in there. I'm just guessing how many there are. But some of those sub funds within there have negative fund balances in them. So that's something that probably needs to be addressed in the budgeting process as to how to rectify those negative fund balances in some of those sub funds from transfers from the general fund or other areas that you will need to address. Next, there is a comment about FTE. Basically, we tell all of our school districts that to continually assess their FTE and their finance department, because in a lot of schools, we note that the finance department takes on a lot of extra work when it comes to the new grants. I mean, a lot of the COVID grants are ending, but that created a lot of new work. There's the SIA monies that ODE has given you that creates a lot more work for your finance department, as well as I mentioned before, there's a lot of new GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board standards that happens every year, which your staff has to work with me to implement every year. And there were a few over the last few years, GASB 87 and 96, that probably took, I mean, Kim could probably tell better, but most of my clients probably took 80 to 150 man hours to implement. So that's a significant amount of time that your finance staff had to take away to implement new standards in the past few years. So we always tell people, assess your FTE, make sure you're not stretched too thin in the finance department, because I've seen in a lot of school districts over the last 10 years that they've been stretched pretty thin. We don't know about your district because we're not there every day. We don't know what duties the HR has versus payroll, but it's something to always assess and think about during the budget process. Next, one thing that we've also noted statewide is there is a large accounting shortage. And so it's something that will has to be addressed as kind of a contingency plan. What happens if Kim wins the lottery and retires to Hawaii? And then it's very difficult to find good finance directors and accounting staff. So that's something to think about in the future. The reason for the shortage is a lot of regulation has chased off people from the industry, as well as a lot of people in my age or even younger went into information technology jobs instead of accounting. So there's this huge shortage. And I think I read somewhere that 75% of the CPAs in the United States are retiring in the next 10 years. So this is something to think about a contingency plan over the next few years as you deal with this potential issue in the future. If you have any questions on any of those comments or the audit process, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
I'll go. First of all, the report was very nice and I appreciate the definitions. And this is my second year. So this is first time I was swimming. I was swimming a little bit less this time, but still swimming nonetheless. One of the things that I would like to see, if possible, is that we're trying to track down, because I got like 5 different reports in front of me from the years trying to track the changes. Is when we decide to like change how we're going to itemize something from one account to another, it makes it harder for me to know where that money was going from one account to another. Because, like, for example, I don't know if you're taking money when you're auditing and you're completely separate from the school district. You're taking our books, putting a ton of work into it, and you're itemizing our stuff. And as long as you're consistent from year to year, it's easy for me to track the money. So I guess what I'm saying, an example would be like, say, utilities for PGE. You're like, oh, well, we'll put that over into maintenance instead of into this item over here. Does that happen a little bit in this document? Because some areas are completely blank, and next year we'll have, I feel you're bringing this up, and it was I'll give you an example, like charges for services, like instruction and support services on page 5. 1 year we'll have money in there, next year it's completely gone. And I just don't know if that's an itemization change or actually real money that got changed from the district. Does that make sense? I'm not the smartest person in the room on this, I promise you that. So you're gonna have to bear with me.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes in some of the grants and the grant allocations within the charges or services categories and the operating grants. It's a matter of ODE. There's some grants that are more instruction and more support services. Most of those are purely just estimates that are required by generally accepted accounting principles on page 4 and 5. Those numbers aren't necessary. Those aren't numbers that are going to match up with the numbers that you get on a monthly basis from Kim. These are totally separate accounting records. They're not separate. They are built from your accounting records, but they are on the full accrual basis of accounting, which is wholly different than the modified accrual set of accounting. It's a little complex, but what the board really gets on a monthly basis would be the revenues and expenditures that are on pages 7. That's really what the board looks at and what Kim gives you. The ones on page 5, which you're talking about, is more something that is required by Governmental Accounting Standards Board that is definitely a lot more complex, and there's a lot more allocations and estimates in those numbers than there are on your books. So it's kind of difficult to, pinpoint the exact changes, but we could definitely look into any issues that that you have on those. I don't know if I answered your question. It's definitely a wholly different set of, for the most part, I wouldn't be looking at page 5 necessarily when you're looking at the general fund or the special fund or how you guys want to spend money, because these are totally different bases of accounting. There's, in some of these numbers, just for example, you have your pension liability in these numbers where we have to, and sometimes your pension liability will change $30-40 million in a year. And we have to go through and kind of estimate and put them in the expense categories. So it's going to be something that's wildly different from your books, just based on, because your books don't have the pension liabilities within it, but these statements do. So there's a lot of changes between those two sets of books, if I'm making sense.
You are, and this is my last one. I'll let my board members go.
Sure.
So I have reports all the way back from 2016 to currently. And what I'm seeing is a trend of our assets being reduced by nearly $25 million over that time span. And our net position basically in 2015 was positive 8 mil. And now we're down to negative 7.5, which is, we're going from, compared to last year, making great changes in the right direction. My concern is, or question is, why are the assets depreciating so much? Other than it's just, is it the old buildings? Is it what is making that drastic change in our assets?
Well, mostly what it is changing is the depreciation on your assets. So those are going to be reducing your assets. That's going to be the big one. But also the reason why your net position is decreasing every year since you looked at from 2016 is because the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is putting in new statements in place that are adding more and more potential liabilities on the books. So in the past, you didn't have to put your net pension liability for your portion of PERS on the books. I don't know what year that came into place. Maybe about 2016. I don't know exactly, but they've also put on the books your subscription liability and your GASB 87. Those are two things that just came up over the last 2 years. So you're putting a lot more liabilities on the books, which decreases your net position there. So GASB is trying to get to, let's get everything possible on your books. And that's kind of why there's been changes that you're seeing from 2016, because every year we have new standards that are putting, sometimes they're putting assets on the books, but a lot of times they're putting liabilities on the books. And that's why your net position has been decreasing over the last probably 10 years.
And if I can chime in as well, depreciation, of course, is a huge part of it. However, in this time period we're referencing, there's been extremely little investment in capital.
To maintain those assets?
That makes sense.
To maintain the assets essentially is, or
To increase capital assets. There's been very little increase in capital assets. We have not purchased land. We have not improved a building. We have not built a new school. We have not purchased a fleet of vehicles. We have not been in a position to invest in those long-term capital assets that we are now realizing cannot, sustain without some additional help.
And those continue to depreciate over time, the ones we do have.
If could you highlight on page 7, you mentioned it here a second ago, about the calculations for the lease and subscriptions. I noticed there was nothing there, but in 23, there were values there, so why would it go from having values to completely nothing? Just for the accounting for dummies, could you?
Are you talking about like on, I think on page 4, there is the.
Page 7, other finance sources.
Yeah, what those are is when you have new subscription items or new leases, you have to put those on the books as an other financing source. So the only thing that goes on there would be any new agreements that you entered into during fiscal year 23-24. And that'd be on a budgetary basis of accounting, which is getting a little bit detailed of when the liabilities wouldn't be on your books in the budgetary basis. You would just have an expenditure, then you'd have basically a revenue and other financing sources that they kind of wash out. They'd go to zero. There wouldn't be any net effect, but Governmental Accounting Standards Board says you have to put them on the books every time there's something new. So if you had a new lease for $50,000, you'd have an expense for $50,000, then you'd have a other financing source revenue for $50,000, and they kind of wash through. That's what you're seeing on page 7.
Oh. So help me understand, last year we had a bunch of things in that category. And so that.
I could tell you the amount, I don't have.
And that was I believe that was the first year of that standard.
Yes.
And they all had to be recognized at that time.
Okay, so that was the big difference. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Okay. And, okay. And you've already explained a couple of the other questions I had, so already.
I had a question, hopefully you could just expand on page 23, under bullet point 2, it talks about budget and gap reporting differences. And there's a statement, I think it's the second line down, and it reads the district's budgetary basis of accounting differs from generally accepted accounting principles. Could you maybe expand a little bit on that? I saw that in there, and I think our finance department and kind of what they've done has been doing a fantastic job. So that kind of stood out at me, and I was hoping you could just.
Yeah, that's something that's just required because there is a difference between Oregon budget law that is required because you have budgetary statements that are what we call in the back of the book, the ones behind the notes that show all of your compliance with Oregon budget law. So we have to comply with Oregon budget law on those. And then there's just occasionally a little difference between that and when we present basically the same statements in more of a summary, basically the ones like show up on page 7. Basically what we have to do is we just have to break out capital outlay because in the back of the book, they're just hidden within like instruction and support services. But generally accepted accounting principles say capital outlay has to be shown separately. So that's kind of the difference between Oregon budget law and GAAP. Your expenses are still the same amount. We just have to show that capital outlay separately on I think it's page 7 of the report.
Is it fair to say, Kenny, that is a statement that is in all Oregon audits, that Oregon budget process
Standard legal
differs from-
language.
Yes. Anytime there's a difference between budget law and generally accepted accounting principles, there's something like that in the report. Yeah, and that usually happens for every school district, whether it's in cities or counties, not as much, but sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Kenny at this point?
I guess it's some guidance. I have my last one. So this is my closing statement on watching all this. A lot of this stuff gives me heartburn. Seeing the trajectory that I'm seeing is not good. This is my opinion. With the assets that we have, combined with enrollment going across the state, combined with the inflation of PERS, with our utilities, with teachers' contracts that are necessary. It feels like the amount that our expenses are exceeding our revenue, regardless of our controls. Now, granted, we're doing everything we can to control this, but I feel like COLAs have exceeded the percentage of what the state's kicking in. Am I wrong?
I think you know, that's a excellent funding question in general for public school system. I hear what you're saying and every school district must adjust to changes in funding and enrollment. Capital assets are a concern statewide, as Kim was explaining, that is exactly what ODE is looking to capture and make available so that we can begin to look at this as a broader picture. I do agree that Silver Falls, yes, that is a concern. I believe it is my personal opinion. That is a public school funding.
Correct. I
concern.
guess that's my point, is like the big 30,000-foot view is, this isn't just our district. I'm looking like every COLA, and what the state's coming into backfill. You know, I looked at our reserves and where we are at and where we went to. It's like we have no room at all if they decide to have another unfunded mandate. Period. And I'm scared of that.
That's kind of getting outside of our audit though.
But
Yeah.
As far as that's a funding issue, and this audit, remember, is procedurally following the rules and doing whatever numbers we have.
Yeah.
Are we doing it correctly?
Well, that's the economic factors,
And-
unfortunately.
But
I guess we're to Phil's point, I'm gonna put some sunshine on you here to cheer things up, because again, I think the focus here, to even what Phil just said, the focus here of the audit is of the process. It's not the factors that affect our budget. Or, yeah, you know, you can just look at our reserves have gone down, our budgetary situation has gone down. We've gotten to really a hard situation this past year because of multiple factors. The onus of the audit is not to talk about the factors. The onus of the audit is to say, how well did we account for these things? We may have had a negative budget. We may have had a positive budget, but were the processes done according to generally accepted accounting principles? Were the processes done legally? Were the processes done in a way that they should be done, right? And I think we have a lot to dare I say, in terms of budget, we don't have a lot of celebrations to do right now, right? But to celebrate the process that was done here and to say kudos to Kim and our team, both Kims and our team, to say that the process by which we did this budget, albeit the net result of the budget was not favorable. The processes by which we held to or were done in the terms of the accounting principles were squeaky clean.
yeah,
And I think by focusing on that, we can add transparency to our community that the situation didn't get we didn't get in a situation, and I'll just kind of be in a crude way to say it, we didn't cook the books, right? None of that was going on. There was nothing shady going on, you know, when the budget, you know, really hit critical mass here this past year. What happened was we overspent, you know, on certain items, and unfortunately revenues didn't come in to cover that which we wanted to spend on, we needed to spend on. That's the easy thing to say. But again, I come back to what I opened the statement with of the audit was clean. The process was done correctly. The principles were done right. And the process by which we followed was extremely well done. And I think Kenny shared that earlier, just in his overall, his letter, that the process was done well, and kudos to our team for following that process and to have a very, very clean audit.
And can I add to that for a second? And I think the level of scrutiny for our current situation is probably way more robust than it normally would be. And so I think that Kim has done an exceptional job managing all of those demands and questions. And I mean, there were a ton of questions asked, and I've worked in many other districts. And typically this is a 2-minute conversation. The budget was clean, we're moving on. And that wasn't what this was. And so I would just caution you that Kim already works 14 to 16 hours a day. And so her level of dedication to rectify what happened in the district is exemplary. And I think that this should alleviate people's minds about, you know, I think we had some we had a perfect storm. We had declining enrollment. We spent too much money on some things. We didn't adjust our staffing levels to meet our enrollment. I mean, Jackie's schematic or diagram is blazed in my mind forever. I'll never forget it, the graph. And I think while you want to, justify or find some reason for why all that happened, I think there's nothing nefarious here.
No.
No.
And I think that we just need to move on and trust each other that we're gonna do what's right for kids every time. And that it would be my parting comment.
My favorite 2 pages of the audit were Roman numeral 1, the financial highlights. Everything's going the right direction, which is a heck of a turnaround for it been for 4 or more years. And then page 18, where it talks about expenditures of various funds were within authorized appropriation levels for the year ending June 30th, 2024. And there were 4 exceptions to that the year before. And so, and as far as, Kenny, thank you for your patience in answering our questions for you.
Yeah, no problem.
I also would like to thank Kenny. He and his team have worked with Silver Falls for years. This is my first year having this level of new level of involvement in the audit. It's been an eye opener. I appreciate his patience with me. But it is so critical to have a audit partner that works with us to help us meet the deadline. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if our audit is not completed and submitted to the state by December 31st, we risk a freeze on our state school funds. That would be absolutely devastating to us right now when we're working in a really structured financial environment. So I really want to thank him. I appreciate his partnership and patience with me as well, as I probably asked some silly questions and yeah, thank you, Kenny.
No problem.
I have a procedural question. Kenny sent an email to us today, a letter, and in the past, I think those have been in the whole document. Can we add that to board book since he referenced it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe that's public. Is that correct, Kenny? That could be released?
Yeah,
Perfect.
definitely.
Absolutely. That will
normally-
be posted.
normally
May or
in
morning.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you. I think, Kenny, I appreciate you being here, and I think unless there's any other questions, I think we're gonna let him enjoy what's left of his evening.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In addition to Kenny, I really want to thank the school board. I really could tell the time and effort that was dedicated to reviewing this document over the past couple weeks. Really insightful questions. I'm really hopeful that, the information that I've been able to share with those responses help lay a great foundation to maybe get a better feel for a very complex document. As Kenny was saying, on one page, it's calculated one way, and on another page, and believe me, I sent him and I said, we have a problem. It's different on page X and Y. And he's like, you're good, Kim. It's supposed to be, expenses are supposed to be different. And it just, I will, vulnerability say, I still don't fully understand exactly what gets included or excluded page by page, and just appreciate that partnership. So, I want to provide I'm going to try to keep this short in light of time, but did want to walk through some key takeaways tonight. For those, if anybody's watching online, I'm going to use the actual page numbers from the page that itself, rather than the electronic PDF pages. That way we can be consistent. But as Kenny was saying, it begins with the auditor's report at the start of the document. Anybody who is familiar with the audit process, we all know we get the book and we flip to the back page and we look and see what is the result. An unmodified opinion with no concerns, is what we're looking for. And very pleased. Want to thank the business team and our school administrators and our office specialists district-wide, because it takes every single person to work together toward these common pieces. Our auditor will come to us and say, for transaction X, show me all the supporting documentation. And so while I understand it sometimes maybe a little bit of Kim said something back to me again, it's this level of a clean and transparent audit for our public to know that whatever transaction you want to randomly pick out of our system is going to have the appropriate authorizations, documentation, and coding that is done. So, I just, the other piece that I think is important for the public to understand is after the opening auditor's report, there's a section called the Management Discussion and Analysis, and this is often referred to as the MD&A. And this is the one section of this document that is prepared by the district. So the Management's Discussion and Analysis is intended to provide, an overview of the changes that have happened in the fiscal year. And that MD&A section is followed by the actual statements and the financial statements that go into that summary. But of keynote, if anybody is to read one page out of this document, I highly, highly recommend Roman numeral 7. And that is our economic factors and next year's budget. And while this is something that I draft in collaboration with our team here, and it is something that I think is of critical importance to understand at a high level summary where we are and what we need to really focus on moving forward. So again, really encourage people, if you're going to read one thing, that would be my suggestion. One other piece for public transparency to point out, page 24 of the notes section. This refers to our cash status. They call it cash and investments, although all of our funds are liquid as far as investment. The local government investment pool is considered a investment in essence. It is buying shares. However, it is the main vehicle that all school districts, retain funds in. However, wanted to point out that as of June 30th, 2024, we had a cash balance of $4,200,000. That includes $3,800,000 of the TAN loan. So without that TAN loan on June 30th, we would have had $400,000 to our name. In the first few days of July, we pay our largest PERS bill of the year. We pay our health insurance bill. Millions of dollars would have gone out in the first couple of days of July before our state school fund money had come in. So I just wanted to point out that this is exactly in line with our cash flow projections, why that tax anticipation note was critical. We would not have had sufficient cash flow to meet our obligations within those first 2 weeks of July. Very happy to report then, of course, those 2 weeks were done and we were in great shape, which is why our interest earnings, of course, from that point forward, in a very favorable market, we were actually at 5.55% for quite some time in one of our money market accounts. So just kind of wanted to share that, that is exactly right where we knew we were going to be, that tight, and appreciate the board approving that tax anticipation note, because without that, there would have been a significant issue. So
That validation that we had no choice.
Thanks for highlighting that.
Yes,
just 'cause,
I appreciate you pointing that out.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So again, in light of time, there's only one other section that I think is important for the public to also understand, is the status of the debt instruments that Silver Falls has. That's going to be on page 44. This is a listing of all of our long-term debt. The tax anticipation note was a short-term debt, so is not included on this page, but it's important for the public to understand what liabilities the district has as far as long-term debt. In 2003, 2004, and 2021, we had pension obligation bond issuances. While PERS is, of course, a hot topic right now, those pension obligation bonds have saved to date the district over $14 million. Had we not done those pension obligation bonds over the years since 2003, 14 million more would have been gone out the door to PERS. So that is an analysis I know I shared with our finance committee at our last session. So that is definitely, sometimes debt instruments are a positive for a district, which seems a little odd for those of us, when we think about debt, but Going down that same list there's a 2020, September 2020 issue of a debt instrument. That is a refinancing of the Silverton High School bond. And that bond will be fulfilled in the 2026-2027 school year. That will be paid in full. We have a 2015 note. It's a full faith and credit loan through which is now Umpqua Bank. And that was a lighting efficiency upgrade. Senate Bill 1149 provides funding to school districts to perform energy efficiency upgrades. We're currently receiving around $85,000 a year in those upgrades. And we could have used that money year by year to perform lighting upgrades and start saving on those energy costs. However, in 2015, the board and administration at that time secured funding to perform those upgrades in advance, immediately implementing those energy savings while using then the revenue that is coming in annually through Senate Bill 1149 to now pay that note. So just like people to understand what those are. And then the final note on there, the 2019, excuse me, and that was the 2019 note. I apologize. That energy efficiency was a 2019 note. The 2015 note, that debt, which will expire in 2029, is the middle school. We had to obtain funding to create a usable building for the middle school. So I just want full transparency on that and let people understand where the district's funds are going. As those debts expire, of course, there are significant changes to the budgeting that need to happen, and also planning for the future. So it's my hope that you know, our public takes some time to look through this online. I really appreciate, again, the board's commitment to digging through it. There were some excellent detailed questions that took me some digging and looking through things to figure out exactly how it all played through, but I hope I've been able to answer some of those questions. So.
Okay, great job, Kim. Appreciate and do appreciate your responses and everything, and that you take it so seriously and it's greatly appreciated. Okay, then we'll move on. And we have our policy first reads. And so the first is EBBA. Did anyone have any questions or comments or anything concerning it? It's the one on student health services.
Yeah, I guess the only comment I had when I looked at the our current policy, versus what was recommended, and I don't know if it would be covered in an AR, but it seemed like our current policy had a lot more direction about what staff should actually do in an emergency versus what was recommended by OSBA. So as you kind of look through that, hopefully it gets. And I don't know if that would be the fix where it's actually in an AR, but it talked about all employees knowing where first aid supplies were equipped, and I didn't really see that captured in the recommended policy.
We could definitely add an AR for that, Derek. That would be a good distinction.
Anyone else on EBBA? Okay, then we have EBBA not sure, AR, I guess, but what's would be deleting isn't. That one was hard for me to follow exactly what was happening there.
I think we're just combining some of these.
Yeah.
into new
Was
policy.
that the case?
Yeah, they're deleting some, they're just streamlining, which I'm all for.
So,
Yeah, some are deleted.
yeah, and that was being deleted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I just assumed if they had the same cover sheet, they were all
Yeah.
being combined.
Right.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the cover sheet designates a new area.
Right. And then any discussion on that?
Not on the AR deletion, no.
Okay. How about EBBA? B.
I have something on this one.
Okay.
So part of my concern with this is like, I like streamlining and okay, we don't need to keep making more policies on top of policies. I'm glad we're combining some finally. But on the backside of this new OSBA sample policy, I'm like, well, this seems like just more work.
Which one are you
So
on, Josh?
EBBB, it's the OSBA
3Bs.
injury.
Injury or illness report.
Yeah, and on the backside, it's like the records will include monthly reporting information and analysis of the data trends we conduct this annually. It's just like, sounds like of an action. Now, are we already doing some of these things? It's like in the last paragraph. And I know that we're already down a nurse, so I'm like, who's taking these monthly reporting? And then are we even reporting this to the board anyways? So it just seems like work. Do we have to include that section?
Well, and I don't think we necessarily report it to the board, but we do track injuries, illness and accidents. Yeah, we do track all that.
So you guys are already doing it then?
Yeah,
Okay, that was my concern. It was just more work on your guys' plate.
yeah, no, we already do that.
That's probably
I'm
required.
sure
by
the
OSHA.
insurance.
That's
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
that's, I was gonna say, ocean insurance would be, guess, my guess.
Tim probably could speak more on that.
I was gonna say, that's something I actually, we track it. I would love to see it in a more metric form so that we can identify trends. We can identify, your high frequency versus high value costs. You want to look at that. So, great analysis is, let's say we were going to move, a classroom from here to there. Well, let's call it a program, something bigger. Do you utilize your own staff to do it and risk injuries and that sort of thing? Or do you hire that out? Because you need to look at that information and say, okay, when we have certain activities, certain operations, is there a potential risk that can be mitigated by possibly, utilizing, an outside contractor to move heavy equipment instead of us trying to do it? So that's just an example, actually, that I came across recently when I was listening to another district speaking about it, that they opened a new school and they thought, oh, we're going to move all our stuff ourselves. And when they analyzed how many workers' comp claims they had when they were done, they realized they probably should have gone with the contractor they had bid the physical equipment move, right? So, yeah, I'm all for tracking and protecting our staff and getting in front of trends.
It sounds like you guys are doing it already. You just want to make an improvement.
I just would like it more summarized. Exactly. Right now, we
The more
collect
knowledge to
it.
analyze it, and I think like Salem Vector is using a new software that tracks employee injuries. And I think that would be a really interesting addition. It's really helpful in sped classrooms to identify trends and triggers and, things that happen inside a classroom. So Brandon was researching that, and we're not done looking at that yet, but I think that might be a good addition to kind of keep track of some of this stuff and provide some data for us.
Okay. Any more questions or comments on that particular policy? Okay, and then we have EBC. Emergency plan and first aid. Pretty clear cut to me.
And the committee looked at this and we thought it was fine as written.
Yeah.
When we met in policy team.
Yeah. As far as a lot of that's been pretty standard for a long time. And then EBC, emergency procedures and disaster plan.
No, EBCA, safety threats. Is that first?
Oh, my bad. Yep. EBCA, excuse me.
So my question on this one is that Parent Square is our mode of communication, right? So we're already doing that. And we've had no issues with I'm just thinking like, if somebody doesn't have that in guardianship, we've got all those bases covered, all right?
Yeah, and I would say that, oh my gosh, the coverage on Parent Square, it's like 98% of our families have someone that's listed on Parent Square. And then we also have emergency. So if that didn't work, we have emergency contacts as well listed in Synergy.
And I feel like you guys did this policy already this year with Bethany and a couple other things.
I think we
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, earlier in the year, I believe so.
Okay. And then EBCB,
Yeah, this one was a mess.
emergency procedure
You got it.
drills and instruction.
This one was worded very poorly. So there's definitely some changes to make here. Like very first or second paragraph, at the end of the first line, all schools are required emergency procedures so that students, staff and students, what do they mean? All parties? It's just worded very poorly. And there's a lot of stuff here that says it's required for tsunami hazard zones, and we're not one of those. So we definitely need to probably cross off some of these things and just reword it.
I think we skipped one. Sorry. Yeah.
EBCB.
Skip safety threats, EBCA. Sorry about that.
That's what the last one was on. That's what Parent Square was.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's
Safety.
okay. Okay, so you're on EBCB.
Yeah, we're on EBCB.
Yeah, just to kind of build on what Josh said, I think it's the second paragraph where it talks about all schools are required to instruct and drill students on district emergencies procedures so that students, they can respond to an emergency without confusion and panic. I'd probably scratch like without confusion and panic and put something that's like effectively, I think we're talking about students putting their emotional state in there. So I think if our goal is to train, we should probably remove the feeling of it. And put
Yeah, so put a
Respond-
positive,
Yeah.
a positive skill,
Yeah.
behavioral skill.
And we have to adjust the brackets on this. So
Yeah.
this is the OSBA model
Yeah.
policy. So this isn't the one. So on your second reading, I go through these and I clean up the.
Okay.
Okay,
I
take
clean
the
up the-
tsunami pieces out.
Yes, I take the tsunami part out.
So what's your
Don't think so,
recommendation?
Richard.
Make something more positive?
I would just say effectively.
Yeah,
I was gonna
so we'll
say, use the
clean
word,
that.
to an emergency
Effectively.
effectively, is a
Yep.
good word,
And efficiently.
Correct.
efficiently and
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah,
And then under safety threats, the last paragraph on that first page. Kim, can you speak, are they moving away from lockdown, lockout terms?
yeah, so they've updated those. So the standard response protocol, and we just sent that back out to all staff. It's not a lockout anymore, it's a secure.
Okay.
And so we are updating that language. We actually will probably train again and do a refresh on that, Derek, during in-service in August. If we can squeeze it in with all the other stuff. That's
So-
pretty important, so I think we'll squeeze it in.
In the same one here, in the second paragraph, or maybe it's like the third paragraph sentence, says the first emergency evacuation drill should be conducted within 10 days. And then under fire emergency and the second says at least one fire drill will be held within the first 10 days of the school year. Like it's a little duplicative,
Well, that's crossed out on my copy.
Yeah, the gray
Strike
stuff
through.
is crossed out.
oh, the
Strike
gray
through.
means it's
The
crossed
gray-
out
the
or not
gray is
addition.
strike.
Which is why it's reading funny, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that explains a lot.
Gray, strike out.
So the grays are strikeouts. That wouldn't,
Yeah, I
there
was
did
wondering
fix
about
them.
that on your
I know, it
copy.
might be better if they use the red line or something.
Okay. That fixes it. I was like, this is trash policy. Whoever wrote this,
Yeah, we're used to red lines,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
This is
Ignore
how-
it.
That fixes
Yeah,
everything.
we'll make this.
So
prettier.
those are not additions, they were strikeouts.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
excellent.
Okay. Anything else on that policy?
Mm,
I think we ran out of them.
That's it.
Miracle. Not really, there's a whole other stack. on my
Well,
desk.
no, I understand.
For now.
Took us 2 months to do it, but we got it. Okay.
I did have a quick comment for you, Kim, on this, the special reserve. They made a note of that in the report. I looked it over, like, we're significant improvements there in those negative balances. Like, I mean, they're there, but they're reduced in half and a lot of the amounts are significantly
Correct.
reduced. So
Correct.
he made mention of it, but I want to draw it to attention, like, you guys are already doing it.
Huge effort last year. The board approved some supplemental budget to address a lot of those last year. We do have a couple that remain, and we have budgeted interfund transfers to address more of that this year, with the hopes of, having those taken care of. So, definitely feels good, right, to take care of those pieces and move forward.
It's our second moment of public comment. Do we have anyone here? Do we have anyone online?
I am seeing no hands raised online.
Any future agenda item requests? Adjourned.